global warming mess.
Absolutely. But hey, man, thank you for joining us with myself, Benjamin Moshatama, and you with the beautiful Palesa next to me. And thank you for joining us on this wonderful Pan-African platform, Channel Africa, where you get news, information, and entertainment from a Pan-African viewpoint. But that African perspective is the real essence of what we are all about right here. It's us Africans telling the story of ourselves for ourselves, and it's something that we do not shy away from. I don't know about you, but I struggle with this first hour conversation that we're about to have, which is collective trauma that we have collectively in our different countries. I think on the continent we have something very unique where we have a collective trauma that we all feel in the same note, which is colonialism or post-colonialism or coloniality in some sense. And you don't know how to navigate the trauma of finding yourself in that environment. Here in South Africa, we've had apartheid. We thought the Truth and Reconciliation Commission would help us kind of unpack the struggles and how painful the experience of apartheid is. But years later, it feels like there's still that separation that persists. There's still that battle of us kind of trying to figure out who we are as one identity here in South Africa. I can imagine like countries like Rwanda, where there were ethnic cleansing situations, how people are trying to also just get to know one another from tribal lines, and it must be very, very difficult. And we're seeing the remnants of it in certain disputes in different kinds of ways, and it still affects us to this day. So how do we deal with that mental struggle of dealing with these historical pains, but also some of the trickling effects that we still see today? I mean, someone would say, Ben, you never experienced apartheid. I'm not quite sure if that's true. I was born 1980 something, and that means, I was born within that apartheid context. Maybe it was coming to an end, but there was still that hatred. And also I saw the transformation of the country and felt like, is it really doing enough in considering me as a younger South African at the time? And now as an adult, I'm kind of sure, I'm not sure if I've been part of that conversation. How about you, Bali?
Yeah, I think the remnants are there, whether or not you were born or experienced apartheid in person, you experience it through what happens, right? Being raised by people who, got traumas from the apartheid era. Those are traumas that stay and that are passed on into different generations. So there is no such thing if you were born within the context of some sort of collective trauma that you did not experience, because trauma stays and trauma is passed on through generations.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to that. It's coming up a little bit later on the show. We have our Becoming feature. That's where we kind of figure out how do we become better people? How do we navigate the struggles of adulthood, the struggles of development, but also just trying to, measure up, lift the level up for ourselves as individuals. And then in our third hour, we'll also have Live Well, which is more of a health feature. Remember, you can stay in touch with us in many ways.
Absolutely. At Channel Africa 1, that's where you can stay in touch with us. That's our social media handle. For most of our platforms on Facebook, we are simply Channel Africa. Don't forget, we are live on Facebook, we're live on Instagram, we're live on YouTube, and those are great ways for you to see what we're up to in the studio, but also to have a really immediate one-on-one way to communicate with us. Yes. We see you on those lives, so say hi and let us know where you're tuned in from. Ask questions, be a part of the conversations. We want to engage with you. The number to know is +27 63 406 9126. Welcome to On the Move.
Africa Update on Channel Africa with Lulu Kabu.
Protesters in Ghana have accused the country's president of violating the constitution and interfering in the independence of the judiciary. Eric Mawena Egbeta, the opposition protesters are calling for the reinstatement of Tokonu.
The presidency and the president and all of its spokespersons around the seat of government have had one narrative and one narrative only, that no constitutional breaches have occurred in the process up until now, which has resulted in the suspension of the Chief Justice. In fact, it does appear the government has already communicated to these protesters that were not interested in having the Chief Justice return and fill her position until the determination of the matter. We believe that she must remain suspended for the investigations to take place, after which the final determination will inform whether or not she returns.
Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time. Get set and be ready to go. On the move with Palesa and Benjamin Moshatama.
Hey, let's start with our first hour conversation. May is Mental Awareness Month, and mental health is something that we have to zoom into. But, you know, we have so many different things that collectively we are feeling on the African continent. If we're not feeling them presently, that because they're not happening and they happened historically, we definitely know that there are things that have happened in the past that still affect us today. Let's speak about colonization. Let's speak about civil wars. Let's speak about genocide. Just recently, we had huge collective trauma, even from the child abductions that even took place in Nigeria. The conflict that's happening in Sudan and South Sudan is something that's still a collective thing that we feel about. The child slavery sometimes that we see in different African countries, let's put in the Democratic Republic of Congo, is something that we feel, as much as we are far from all those places, we still feel a sense of Africanness and a sense of pride about who we are, even in our different collective countries. But even individually, we feel that weight even in our challenges that we've seen in our different African countries. How do we crack on that particular feeling or those sentiments that actually can boggle us down to a certain degree? Generations of Africans have inherited more than land and language. They've inherited also traumas, the anxiety of displacements, the depression of loss, the internalized shame of racial oppression. These legacies live on whether we want to accept them or not. In society where therapy is still taboo and pain is often spiritualized, many continue to suffer in invisible ways. Today we ask, what happens when trauma isn't healed but passed down? How do we reckon with the emotional debris of violent pasts? And what does collective healing look like for a continent still grappling with its past? We're speaking to a clinical psychologist, Louis Karanja, who's joining us on the line. Louis, thank you for joining us here on Channel Africa.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's easy to... Sure. Thank you so much, Louis, for joining us. It's, as I was trying to say, it's easy to actually deal with something that you think is more personal. And you say, you know what, this is something that I'm struggling personally, can be a one-on-one issue. But when you have to deal with something that feels like it's collective, it's coming outside of your own personal experiences and has to do with your national identity or your national history or even your continental collective trauma, it's very difficult to really isolate it and actually deal with it as an individual. It is a challenge, isn't it, Louis?
Yes, it is.
How so?
Probably,
sure.
So probably just to echo what you said about when you're mentioning like the examples of collective trauma. Like probably if I was to give an example, like in Kenya, we went through the post-election violence, which happened in 2007, 2008. Mm-hmm. So that's probably 8 to 9 years in the past. Now, it can manifest right now in probably the children who witnessed, the adults who witnessed that particular trauma. Because even ideally, like for children, probably when your parent is parenting you or probably over the overprotection, the emotional unavailability, the harsh discipline, it usually now, it is like you are now, the trauma is now moving on to the child. That's now why we usually talk about the intergenerational trauma, because now you are moving that trauma from you as a parent now to the child. And now the child, when they grow up to become an adult and they have their own children, the trauma will keep on moving. That's why it's very hard for someone to be able to like know probably if they're having a traumatic event or probably something has happened. It's because it has been passed on. It's like a cycle. Probably if there was violence, there'll be a cycle of violence. Like in the post-election violence here in Kenya, which happened, there was a lot of violence. So if an adult or probably an adolescent or a child doesn't talk about it, that particular person, that trauma won't be healed. So the cycle of violence will still continue. Probably they'll be violent to their partners, to their parents, and the cycle will still continue.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough one because we feel it in many African countries, and I really feel what you're feeling as a South African, as much as my experience that I had is very different to yours, Lewis. The ramifications feel like the same thing. In South Africa, we had a whole thing about inequality when it comes to excess of resources. There was inequality when it came to accessing facilities, accessing healthcare. That was just the history and the baggage of what happened during apartheid. But even now, in our dispensation of democracy, we still feel that inequality. We still don't have access to health facilities. It's almost like it's a luxury to have a health facility. The crime elements are actually born from the inequalities that we've seen for many, many decades, hundreds of years here in South Africa. So we feel that, but it's actually difficult now taking it from a personal perspective and saying, okay, what do I do with this trauma? What do I do with this experience? And how do I take care of my mental wellness despite all the stuff that's happening in this country? It feels also like a luxury, speaking about mental wellness, when you think about collective trauma.
I think I agree with you on that, because mental health has been stigmatized and people view mental health to be something that probably is for the white or probably someone who is wealthy. But mental health cuts across to everybody from all social classes.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we'll take a bit of a break and continue. And I want you to expand on that, on how it actually does that and how we can actually take care of ourselves collectively. Should we have national programs of restoration and wellness? Or is it coming back to just the individual on how they deal with it? We'll look at this after this particular break. Stay there on the line, Lewis. We'll come back to this conversation. We're speaking about collective trauma. I think it's very tricky bringing it to collective responsibility and how you heal from that, because some of the challenges even still persist with us. What's your take on it? Remember, our WhatsApp number is +27 63 406 9126.
Zochitika ndi madaphiri kamlondola wa zochitika pena paliponse.
Aphungu a nyumba ya malamulo mu dziko la Malawi akuchita zokambirana zawo pa zinthu zosiyanasiyana pambuyo pa nyumbayi kutsegulidwa masiku apitawo, ndipo kondani Nyamasa ukali nafe pompano chiyambireni aphungu akukambirana masiku apitawo ndi zovuta ziti zomwe zachitika mu nyumba imeneyi ya malamulo.
Ndingathe kunena kuti state of national address imene a president Dr. Lazarus Chakwera akhala kuipereka mu nyumba ya malamulo imeneyi idautsa mpungwepungwe kwambiri nyumbayi, chifukwa pofika panopa mene ndikuyankhula pano ndiye kuti munafuna kubuka ndewu mnyumbayi. Leader of the house olemekezeka Richard Kimwendo Banda kuyimirira kuyankha koma mopsa mtima zimene amayankhula phungu oyimira ku Blantyre City South East Pasama Suleiman, kunena kuti sona imene adapereka president pa 14 February ikuonetsa kuti palibe chilichonse cha zero chimene chidaperekedwa mu sona imeneyi, akuti imene ayichotse.
Zochitika ndi madaphiri lolemba mpaka lachisanu pa nthawi ya 7 koloko kufikira 8 koloko madzulo pa Channel Africa.
Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa on the move.
The month of May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and today in this first hour, we're taking a look at how, ills like colonization, apartheid, genocide, civil wars on the African continent shaped our mental health today. In fact, we're taking a look at whether our collective trauma can be healed and if it's passed down, but also how we deal with that collective trauma of all these circumstances that we've had to deal with here on the continent. Clinical psychologist Louis Karanja continues this conversation with us. Louis, let's speak a little bit about, the trauma itself, because many would say that if you are a descendant of Africans in countries where some of these things have taken place, like apartheid, colonization, which is almost all of us, if not all of us, civil wars, etc., that you are not affected because you didn't directly experience that particular trauma. So how does the trauma get passed down collectively from the generation that actually experienced it down to their descendants?
Okay, so basically how the collective trauma is passed. So probably we need to understand what collective trauma, so that now we can trickle down to probably how it is passed down.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the psychological impact of probably any traumatic event that happens, which is experienced by a group of people, a community, and even an entire society. So that's where we are talking about like the genocides which have been happening, the colonization, and also the post-election violence that I talked about, which happened here in Kenya, and also the recent one, which was the COVID-19 pandemic, which also is categorized in terms of the collective trauma.
Absolutely.
So, yes. So when we are talking, like a good example will be now the post-election violence, which had a lot of violence in terms of the ethnic groups, the tribes. So whenever that happens, and probably one doesn't heal. So probably if you witnessed any violence, or probably someone died, or probably a relative died and you didn't heal, or probably you didn't talk about it, you'll now pass it down. So probably if you have a child, if you're related, you will pass down that trauma because there are psychological effects. So probably you might get anxious, or probably you get PTSD, the post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms, and you will affect even the person probably who you stay with, or probably the people who you interact with, because it will bring a lot of mistrust. Probably if you are in the society now with someone, there will be societal deviation. So most of the time, there will be a lot of quarrels, so there won't be any agreement when it comes, probably when we are talking about a society or a group of people. So that's how it is usually passed on.
I see. So when trying to tackle collective trauma, when we try and speak about individual trauma or, our mental health as individuals, it's easy because all you can do is like, okay, I'm going to go to therapy and I'm going to be okay. And then I'm going to deal with my own trauma. But when there's collective trauma and that trauma runs through generations, let's make an example of just one family. Grandparents who experienced the trauma, and then parents, and then grandchildren. Everyone here has that trauma passed down. Where do you begin? In which generation do you begin to heal that trauma, and how do you assure that it's not further passed down through more generations in that particular family?
Okay, you can start with the youngest, since the youngest, at least you can be able to salvage them, if that's the proper word to use.
Right.
Because for them, they'll be able to understand, and you'll be able to identify probably what probably if they are going through panic attacks or probably anxiety, you will be able to tackle it now before you get to the older people, since for them they haven't healed, and probably you see they have already passed on the trauma. So it will be a little bit difficult, but it's still possible for them to go for therapy and to talk about what happened. But where to start with is probably is now with the younger generation, because for them it's easier to talk, and for them it's easier to identify probably what is happening, because for the older generation, they are able to mask, and they already have coping skills to be able to cope with the trauma, since they have already been coping and now they have already passed the trauma on.
I see. So when starting with the youngest generation, what essentially you're doing is trying to make sure that if that younger generation is healed, the generations that come after them will experience a different version of that family in a more healed space, meaning that that trauma doesn't further trickle down. Does that mean that it's a lost cause for the older generations? Nothing can be done to try and heal them. Nothing can be done to assure that they also feel some sort of healing from the traumas they experienced?
I wouldn't say that they are a lost generation, but for them, we can use a different approach, like group therapy, or probably having a group setting and them just talking about what happened and giving themselves hope. Because I usually believe that probably when you will feel that you're not alone, probably when someone shares something that is similar and you have already gone through, so they'll be able to equip you and give you that resilience.
I see. Well, we're about to wrap up this conversation. I think it's a really great one. And for many of us on the continent who have experienced the traumas and the remnants of colonization, of civil wars, and, even COVID-19 is part of a collective trauma, it really does take the first step, meaning there has to be a generation that actually decides that, look, we're not going to continue passing this trauma down.
Yeah.
Someone has to heal.
Yeah, it's very difficult to do so, because that means there has to be a collective national effort that's also going to be pioneered by African leaders in our different sections, not only government, but also maybe private sector and also our local communities.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Lewis. It was a pleasure chatting to you.
You're welcome.
That's clinical psychologist Louis Karanja speaking to us about collective trauma on the African continent and how we can make efforts to heal it. It's 9:30 Central Africa time. Let's get our latest sports news.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Good morning, guys. Let me serve off with tennis news. Jasmine Paolini became the first Italian woman to reach the Italian Open semi-finals since 2014 when she beat Russian world number 11th Diana Schneider 6-7, 1, 6-4, 6-2. In a stunning first-set collapse, Paolini was 4-love up but lost the next 5 games before Schneider then forced a tie-break, which the 21-year-old Russian dominated. Backed into a corner, world number 5, Paolini mounted a comeback of her own in the second set, winning 6 successive games after herself trailing 4-love. Down in a break, the decider, French Open runner-up Paolini, continued to show resilience with the crowd behind her to become the first Italian woman to reach the last 4 of the WTA 1000 event since doubles partner Sara Errani just over a decade ago. Now on to fighting. Boxing Professional Fighters League PFL will officially launch PFL Africa with a historic mixed martial arts MMA debut event on the 26th of July at the Grand West Arena in Cape Town, the country's Western Cape province. The launch event will also feature the opening round of the 2025 PFL Africa tournament with rising stars from across the continent battling it out in the heavyweight and bantamweight divisions, each featuring an 8-man bracket, with fighters advancing through semi-finals and finals. PFL Africa General Manager Elias Schulz explains.
We're coming to Cape Town to kick off the tournament in late July. But what inspired it, honestly, Africa has world-class fighters, and they deserve a world-class stage. And that's what PFL Africa is all about. It was born out of the vision of our chairman, Francis Ngannou, the famous Cameroonian fighter who is a champion for Africa and a champion for MMA. And, of course, Don Davis and Pete Murray, of PFL Global.
The highly experienced administrator Schulz unpacks the impact PFL Africa will have on the continent.
First, what kind of makes this a little bit unique is that, we try to bring a true season format to African MMA. Right? So the way we think about meritocratic sports, right? You beat your opponent and you move on to the next thing. And if you keep winning, then you become the ultimate champion of your weight class. So We want to embed the MMA culture, which is already there. You can go across the continent. You see, small boxing fights happening, or martial arts gyms in even second, third tier cities. Right? People are hungry for this.
On to football news. Paris Saint-Germain's dynamic right back Achraf Hakimi has clinched the Marc Vivien Foe Award, crowning him Ligue 1 Standout African Player for the 2024-2025 season. The Moroccan star outshone Nantes' Moses Simon, Nice's Ivan Gussand, and Strasbourg's Habib Diarra to claim the prestigious honor, named after the late Cameroonian midfielder who tragically passed away in 2003. Hakimi played a pivotal role as PSG secured their record-extending 13th Ligue 1 title. His contributions also propelled the Parisians to the Champions League final, where they will face Inter Milan on the 31st of May. The versatile defender sealed his case with a crucial goal in PSG's 2-1 Champions League semi-final victory over Arsenal, showcasing his attacking flair from the right flank. Now, cricket news. Pakistan have appointed Mike Hesson as their new coach for all short formats, replacing Aqib Javed, who was in an interim role for the last 5 months. Gary Kirsten abruptly resigned 6 months into a 2-year contract as head coach when Javed took over the reins on a temporary basis. Hesson enjoyed a fruitful time, 6 years as head coach of New Zealand when he was appointed in 2012, with the Black Caps becoming a force in world cricket, including reaching their first World Cup final in 2015, where they lost to Australia. Hesson is currently the coach of Pakistan Super League PSL outfit Islamabad United and will start his tenure with the national side at the conclusion of the T20 franchise tournament. For any sports stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Phil Lengwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Hey there, this is Palesa, part of the dynamic duo that gives you on the move right here on Channel Africa from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Central Africa time. Well, it's with your help for the past 2 years that we have been a multi-award winning show.
Finally, here we're keeping it on the move in 2025. And yes, I'm the other half of the duo, Benjamin Moshatama. And we're going to keep you going with the great conversations. Turn it up.
Okay. On the Move comes back in 2025 to give you more of the content that made us a Maldo and to deliver that bold, boundary-pushing content that you love. And of course, giving you a ride through the 3 hours of news, views, and entertainment.
Every weekday from 9 to midday Central African time, right here on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Cool.
Let's go. Hey, let's quickly move on and get our latest business news.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Good morning. A University of Johannesburg sociologist in South Africa, Professor Trevor Ngwane, has accused government of failing to create jobs for the poor and of colluding with white monopoly capital. Professor Ngwane was commenting after the unemployment figures released by Statistics South Africa yesterday, which showed a slight increase in the unemployment rate during the first quarter of 2025. Close to 300,000 jobs were lost between January and March this year, as compared to the fourth quarter of 2024. Youth unemployment remains above the national unemployment rate at 40.4%. Professor Ngwane elaborates.
The unemployment rate is because the government of National Liberation of the ANC failed to prioritize job creation to roll back the inequalities of the past. Instead, they chose to collude with white monopoly capital who wanted to continue benefiting from the economy. As a result, job creation took back step and making profit for the rich became the priority.
South Africa's Electricity and Energy Minister Kgosientsho Ramokgopa and his team have already started briefing the media on the readiness and maintenance of the electricity grid in South Africa. We will have details of the briefing in our next update. The African Union and the African Development Bank are meeting in Togo. The meeting is to discuss and develop a common African position on debt. The 3-day high-level summit, which ends today, seeks to come up with a plan to manage debt in Africa and create stable economies. Chief Economist at Don Consultancy Group, Chief Imago, has more.
Expenditure of most African countries, on average, almost close to 80%, is being geared towards interest rates and debt repayment. So that is like taking away a share of what can be used in terms of development expenditure on the African continent. So it is quite a significant approach in terms of ensuring that this debt element is actually reduced or in a way managed with element of fiscal consolidation, but also in element of debt restructuring.
The US dollar has stabilized today following its biggest decline in more than 3 weeks overnight, with softer than expected US consumer inflation data bolstering the case for the Federal Reserve to cut rates just as global trade tensions cool. The consumer price index increased 0.2% last month, which was below the expectations of economists polled by Reuters for a 0.3% gain. Improved US trade prospects, including agreements with Britain and a truce with China, also influence the market. However, analysts say that despite the potential near-term gains, they anticipate that the erratic U.S. policies may have permanently damaged the dollar's safe haven status. Taking a look at our indicators this morning, $1 US in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 600. In Botswana, it's at 13 pula 46. In Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shillings 305, and in Zambia, 26 kwacha 48. Moving to the BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 64. Russia, 80 rubles 40. In India, it's 85 rupees 8. China, 7 yuan 20. And in South Africa, $1 is trading at 18 rand 30. $1 is trading at 75 pence to the British pound and 89 to the euro. Taking a look at the commodities this morning, gold is trading at $3,232 and platinum at $988 per ounce, while Brent crude oil is at $66.17 a barrel. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459 for Channel Africa Business. I'm Buntle Headbush.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa. Celebrate unity, progress, and pride with Channel Africa this Africa Month.
Nowhere be like Africa, nowhere be like home. Africa,
Listen in on SABC Plus, DSTV Audio Bouquet 802, and Satellite Channel PAS 10. No fairy tales, just the facts and the music you love on Channel Africa. Bench reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa.
I think this morning that is Kenkele with Bouge BNXN with One Day Call, taking us to 44 minutes past 9 o'clock Central African time, giving you news, information, entertainment from that African perspective. You are listening to Channel Africa on DSTV channel 802, OpenView 628. Hey, don't go anywhere as well if you're streaming us on our website www.channelafrica.co.za. Hey, we're speaking about trauma, collective trauma, and I wonder if you are feeling, you like, guys, I'm not owning apartheid, I'm not owning colonization. Now, guys, please, let's move on.
This is none of my business.
Yeah.
I feel nothing.
Yeah.
But do you actually know what it is that, I mean, you might feel nothing in a more direct way, right? You can say, I did not experience apartheid directly, therefore I'm fine. And that's okay. We do want you to be fine and healed. It's not like we're trying to say you have to have the trauma. But do you know some of the subtle ways in which the trauma is experienced by your parents and how they've treated you, how they've raised you in the context of those traumas and how that's affected you? So you might think you have other traumas. You're like, yeah, my traumas are not apartheid traumas, but I do have maybe traumas of my parents always shouting at me. How do you know that those are traumas that they got from apartheid, that they've come to you? So you might be experiencing them in a different way, but they still are attached somewhat to the traumas, those apartheid traumas or those colonization traumas that they experienced.
That brings me to this question. As you say that, I'm thinking, are there traumas that we've experienced from our own generation that we passing on to the next generation? I wonder.
I mean, maybe, I don't know if there would be collective traumas, and maybe there are. COVID-19, I mean, years to come, we'll be like, hey, we saw and heard about people's deaths and we were staying at home, and, you know, that those remnants of that COVID-19 trauma still exist today, because what happens today, that we have conversations all the time about working from home, working in the office, this and that, and those are still the remnants of COVID-19. That's a collective trauma that we have that might be passed.
Is an impact of COVID-19.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the remnants of the traumas, collective traumas, happen in different ways. And I think our generation, if not the colonizations, the civil wars that still happen today in other parts of the continent, the apartheid, etc., COVID-19 is a huge global collective trauma.
I hear you and I agree with you, but then who would facilitate this kind of a thing? You know, I always love the indigenous groups of the Americas, or like Australia, the indigenous groups there, because communities facilitate their own healing process, right?
And healing programs,
right? And I don't know from our African context if we've ever taken, the burden of the past and actually come to a point where we're like, let's go through that spiritual process where we actually, number one, we acknowledge that this was a painful experience.
Yeah.
But number two, let's have a collective ceremony to actually heal from it. How would that look like? That's another thing. I mean, there was something that happened, I think last year or the year before, where we actually excavated some remains. I think it was from Mozambique or Zambia,
Yes,
other African,
and brought them back
then
to South
them
Africa.
back to South Africa, and those were apartheid exiles.
Yes.
And I thought that was a healing moment for many families.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got an uncle who hasn't been found, who is still like
Yeah.
missing. And the biggest pain was seeing my grandmother actually know that there's a missing son out there, and she didn't know how he passed away, number one, and his remains never came back. But I think that was a significant stance from the South African government to bring back some of those remains back into the country, but also to do an official national ceremony for those families, and also not just for the families, but for the country.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there should be ways in which we can try and facilitate that. It's very complicated on the African continent because of our various traditions, even in the same country, our different languages, and how we perceive tradition differently across those lines. And so if you want to do something collectively to heal, you have to sort of include all of those so people can feel attached or can feel like, this is for them as well. How do you make it, across board? How do you make sure that it reaches people across board?
It accommodates everybody.
It's difficult. But hey, I think for the most part, we can start family by family.
Yeah.
And if there is someone who's listening right now, wherever you are, and you know that there is collective trauma within your family, maybe start with yourself. Because even individual therapy can heal a family, can heal generations, and can even heal the generations before.
Yeah, I mean, if you do your own personal work, I think also it will affect the generations to come. If you have children, or if you have a generation that's coming after you. What's your take on this one? Do you think we can strip ourselves off generational trauma collectively, a collective trauma that we've experienced in our countries? Because some traumas are not just coming from families. Some of them are characterized by some of the injustices we've seen collectively experienced in our own countries, on our African continent, definitely. What's your take on that one? Remember, you can send us your text on +2763 406 9126.
Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa on the move.
She wanna chill.
More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent. African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story. A living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent. African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other: Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other: Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future.
Hey Shay featuring Run Town, Give Me Love. That's the music we're playing for you right here on Channel Africa. Before that, gave you Manu World Star, Tiani Africa, and Vulgar M with Big Boys. It's 9:56 Central Africa time. As we wrap up this hour of the show, going into the next, we're going into our Becoming feature. And of course, that's the feature where we speak about, the human experience, how we're all part of the human experience and what we are becoming. It's a strange one, especially here on the continent, because many people in Africa are so firm within tradition, and it seems like tradition really is the stronghold of our societies. Tradition is the stronghold of our families, and tradition is the stronghold of our communities. But we're in the modern times. It's 2025. How do we balance tradition with modern ambitions? That's the conversation we're going into in the next hour of the show. And I know it's even harder for those who come from perhaps families that are entrenched in tradition, where all the decisions that you make have to have a traditional root to them. But maybe as an individual, you're finding yourself to be more modern than the environment that you were raised in, and now you have to make your own decisions. And in that decision making process, do you go the traditional route or do you go the modern route? Are some of your modern ambitions actually trampling on what people think are your traditions, and how do you balance the two? We'll be joined by Angela Nzilani, transformational life coach and CEO of Angelique Achievers, in the next hour of the show. So stay tuned for that. It's coming up in the next hour.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that one. It's a tricky one because navigating certain traditional elements means that you have to also consider some of your modern tastes, right? Yeah. And at times those two can be clashing against one another. So we're looking forward to that particular conversation. What do you think about that? How do you navigate tradition versus modernity? I mean, it's comes back to like just questioning your parents. I remember there was a time where you couldn't even say, "Mom, what do you mean by this?" Because your mom says, "Hey, you have no right to ask me questions. You're a child.
Just take what I'm saying. You do what I'm telling you. Don't ask questions."
Yeah, and that's changed over time, even the way we parent. In fact, some of our generation or sectors of our generations like, bring on the questions. I want to answer your questions. Actually, your questions and your inquisitive nature is actually something that as a parent I want to actually absorb and answer your questions, or even let's investigate the questions together. But that happens as well in coupling, where you coming from different backgrounds. Maybe I'm coming from a more modern environment and the other partner is coming from a traditional background. How do you actually compromise and come into the middle ground? We want to get your thoughts on that one. Remember, +27 63406 9126 is that WhatsApp number where you can voice note us and text us, or you can let us know what you are getting up to and where you're listening to us from on that live stream. Remember, our live stream is on our Facebook page, Channel Africa, or you can find it on Instagram and YouTube. On Instagram and YouTube, use the handle at Channel Africa 1, and our Facebook page is titled Channel Africa. Also use that handle at Channel Africa 1. Everywhere we are Channel Africa 1, so it's easy for you to find us.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In the top stories, Botswana relocates asylum seekers detained at the Francistown Center, and Israeli airstrike kills a large number of people. Good morning, I am Nolutando Butelezi. Botswana will soon relocate at least 469 asylum seekers currently detained at the Francistown Center for Illegal Immigrants to Dugwi Refugee Camp, situated some 530 kilometers northeast of Gaborone, Botswana's capital city. The asylum seekers from the war-torn Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, Somalia, Uganda, Rwanda, Ethiopia, Namibia, Zimbabwe, and the Better Great Lakes include an estimated 102 children, some of whom are as young as 3 years. Botswana's Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, Nelson Ramautwana.
Since the current government is an upholder of human rights, we can't keep you in prison without any charge, without any trial, without any conviction. On the basis of the report that was prepared by the Assistant Minister together with the concern of the First Lady, and after consultation and internalization of the report, we came to a conclusion as a collective that you will have to be relocated to Dugwi camp.
The University of South Africa will today launch the G20 Presidency Community Engagements Town Hall Outreach Program at the university's main campus in Pretoria. The university has partnered with the Department of International Relations and Cooperation. The launch is taking place under the theme South Africa in Africa and the World, Economic Prosperity, Global Governance, Peace, Justice, Human Rights and Security. Michael Mbewe reports.
This program is an integral part of South Africa's G20 presidency, which the country assumed on 1st December 2024 and will run until 30 November 2025, held under the main theme Solidarity, Equality and Sustainability.
South Africa's Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Ronald Lamola, has confirmed that all G20 member states, including their heads of state, have been invited to attend the upcoming Leaders Summit in Johannesburg. In a media briefing, Lamola noted that while former U.S. President Joe Biden has been invited, it will be up to the U.S. government to confirm his attendance. On Russia, he indicated that in line with the recent President Vladimir Putin is not expected to attend due to International Criminal Court's ruling, though will be represented at a ministerial level.
With regards to the Leaders Summit, who has been invited to participate, the G20 is for all members of the G20, and the leaders of the G20, they are all expected or they are invited to attend. And the US President, as a member state of the G20, will be invited.
Chimpanzees in Uganda have been observed using medicinal plants in multiple ways to treat open wounds and other injuries. University of Oxford scientists working with a local team in the Budongo forest filmed and recorded incidents of the animals using plants for first aid, both on themselves and occasionally on each other. Their research builds on the discovery last year that chimps seek out and eat certain plants to self-medicate. Researchers say that the study, which is published in the journal Frontiers in Ecology and Evolution, adds to a growing body of evidence that primates use natural medicines in a number of ways to stay healthy in the wild. A big Israeli airstrike on a hospital compound in southern Gaza has killed a large number of people. Gaza's Civil Defense Agency says that at least 28 people have died after 6 devices struck the European Gaza hospital in Khan Yunis almost simultaneously. The BBC's Hugo Bachega reports.
The apparent target of the massive attack was Mohammad Sinwar, who is believed to have become the leader of Hamas in Gaza after his brother Yahya was killed in an Israeli strike last October. Images posted online showed several huge plumes of thick black smoke. The strikes hit the hospital compound and the surrounding area and resulted in deep craters. A freelance journalist working for the BBC was injured and is receiving medical attention. The Israeli military described it as a precise attack on Hamas members.
A recap of the top story: Botswana will soon relocate at least 469 asylum seekers currently detained at the Francistown Centre for Illegal Immigrants to the Dugwi refugee camp situated some 530 kilometers northeast of Gaborone, Botswana's capital city. For any news stories that you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I am Nolutando Butelezi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Hey, it's the second hour of On the Move right here on Channel Africa. Thank you so much for being a part of the Channel Africa family. We appreciate you and we love to share this African perspective with you. So join us on our website, www.channelafrica.co.za. It's a fantastic way to listen to the show and, of course, get a lot of the news and content that Channel Africa has for you. Find us as well on our audio bouquets. To listen live, find us on DSTV, channel 802 and OpenView HD, channel 628. We can also be found on the SABC Plus app. All you need to do is go to your app store, type in there and search SABC Plus. And it's a great app. Lots of content from this great building, the SABC, that gives you news and entertainment and information. But find Channel Africa there under the radio section and listen live. We're taking a look at modernity in a very different way, because as African people, we are greatly entrenched in tradition. But what happens when tradition is in our core and is taught to us, but we still live now in a modern and global environment? How do we navigate these two spaces and still continue to understand who we are? This is what we're talking about in today's Becoming feature, where we look at the human experience. And many Africans today are trying to navigate that dual existence, with one foot deeply rooted in cultural traditions and the other one in fast-paced global modernity. Let's take a look at what that looks like for you and your life, and how we can navigate that space in still trying to become ourselves. We're joined by Angela Nzilani, transformation life coach and CEO of Angelique Achievers, in this hour of the show.
Yeah, we still have something that is coming up in our final hour, the third hour of the show, which is our Live Well feature. And in that one, we're going to be speaking around how do you deal with the rising health risks posed by hypertension during pregnancy. That's an important one. High blood pressure affects 10% of pregnancies worldwide and is the leading cause of maternal and neonatal complications. We're going to be speaking to Dr. Rogers Mabatswa, who is an obstetrician gynecologist based in South Africa's capital city, Pretoria. And the doctor is launching a dedicated awareness campaign on educating pregnant women and their families about the dangers of high blood pressure and the importance of its early detection and its early care. That's an important health issue that we'll be really zooming into in the final hour of the show. So we're looking forward to all these discussions and all these conversations. Remember, our live streams are there for you as well, so stay tuned on our social media platforms and see what's happening in studio.
Es-tu préoccupé par quelque chose? Es-tu passionné par les questions qui comptent? As-tu une voix qui mérite d'être entendue? Eh bien, nous avons la plateforme parfaite pour toi. Téléphone-nous ou fais-nous un WhatsApp au +27 66 408 87 42 et nous te rappellerons. Sois dans la conversation.
Salut Channel Africa, ici Beno le diamant rouge et Binal Export depuis le Cameroun, le pays des lions. Voilà.
Sois dans la conversation. Il ne s'agit pas seulement de parler, mais c'est ta chance d'exprimer ton point de vue, de partager tes opinions et de t'engager avec une communauté qui valorise ton avis. Suivez-nous sur les réseaux sociaux, visitez notre site www.channelafrica.co.za et préparez-vous à partager vos points de vue sur Channel Africa, la perspective africaine. Parlez-vous couramment le français? Êtes-vous passionné par la radio? Et êtes-vous qualifié pour travailler en Afrique du Sud? Envoyez-nous votre CV et votre 3 minutes démo en MP3 à @channelafrica.co.za pour avoir une chance de rejoindre la famille Channel Africa. Si vous n'avez pas de réponse après 14 jours, cela signifie que vous n'avez pas été retenu. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Ahoy, matey!
Captain here to help, right, boys?
Set sail with us on a digital voyage like no other. Channel Africa has a treasure trove of awesomeness. That is our website and social media pages.
Tell me, why are you here?
We want you to be part of our adventure.
The winds are changing, Captain. And this time...
Imagine a world where curiosity knows no bounds, where entertainment meets enlightenment, and where every click leads to the African perspective. Visit us on our website, www.channelafrica.co.za, or follow us on Instagram or on X at Channel Africa One. Go on, like us on Facebook at Channel Africa One. So, spread the word. Tell a friend that Channel Africa's online variety is what they need on the web. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Keeping you on the know and on the move.
It's 11 minutes past 10 Central Africa time. We are in the second hour of On the Move, and we continue the conversations that inform and that entertain you right here with myself, Palesa and Benjamin Moshatama. Well, many Africans today are navigating this dual existence. It's almost like we're trying to be more than one thing at a time. We have one foot in our deeply rooted cultural traditions and another foot in the fast-paced global modernity. The challenge is not to choose between the two, but to integrate them in a way that feels authentic and empowering. In today's Becoming feature, we look at this huge issue that can be quite an oxymoron because, you know, tradition and modernity can look like two opposites, but they can exist within one person, and that's where we need to find a balance. Can we wear our ancestral identities with pride while stepping boldly into boardrooms, labs, stages, and startups? Can we rewrite the rules without disrespecting the rituals? Well, we're joined on the line by Angela Nzilani, transformational life coach and CEO of Angelique Achievers, helping us unpack this on Becoming. Thank you so much, Angela, for your time and for tuning in and chatting to us on this conversation.
Thank you for having me here.
You know,
I'm
Angela,
happy to join you with you.
Africans are closely associated with tradition. Everywhere you go on the African continent, we carry our cultures and our traditions with pride. We make them a part of who we are. If I ask you, who are you? Where are you from? That's a deep part of your culture and your tradition, and you want to share the essence of who you are in that particular way. However, many of us now are also really entrenched in modern culture. There's social media. We live in this global environment. We're moving and understanding things in different ways, and we're also sort of debunking some of the stigmas and myths that were brought on by tradition. So let's speak about this dual existence. We are one person, but it seems like we exist in different realms.
Yes, we are one person, but normally what we need to understand is that we as human beings have a mind that can fathom anything. And if your mind can fathom anything, then it can be achieved. So we have to understand that we can very successfully be able to carry both these traditions and also our modern selves. There is a lot of influence in the modern self, you know, building the person in the modern world. There's a lot of influence. There's a lot of attack that is going on from attacking the traditions, especially the African tradition, which has really stood the test of time, because you realize that most African cultures have still thrived. In Kenya, where I come from, we have the Maasai community, which is like has become like now international tourist attraction. Mm-hmm. And these are some of the cultures that we have to embrace, because you find things like medicine, things like how to even eat healthy, how to stay healthy, how to fight these diseases that have been coming on. And we have been able to fight all these things traditionally. So we must be able to carry both this modernity and also fight to keep our cultures, our traditions going on, because there is a lot of positivity in carrying and embracing our traditions, especially as Africans. And usually the African woman is the bearer, mostly is the bearer of the traditions. That's why you hear of mother tongue. You never hear
Yes.
father tongue.
Yeah.
And women are the ones who stay very close to children as they grow. So we teach our children how to embrace these cultures, whether we intentionally are trying to do it or not, because these are things that have been passed on to us
Yeah.
by our mothers, by our grandmothers. And if we learn to embrace these things, then with a lot of authenticity, with a lot of faith, with a lot of empowering, we can empower even our upcoming generations to embrace the same traditions.
That's so important that you highlight that. And, women are very central in light of that. But sometimes there is a rebuttal that comes from generations that come after them that say, look, I have questions for you. Mommy, I have questions for you. Daddy, I've got questions for you, Granny. We've been doing these things for so many years, but in our modern times, this thing is not relevant. And sometimes it's that questioning itself that is questioned by the previous generation. People saying, no, look, you can't ask this question because it is what it is and there's no answer to it. How do we understand this tradition and this modernism in a way that we question, in a way that is respectable, but that also honors the tradition and also contextualizes the modern elements?
One thing that we have to understand is that asking questions or questioning this tradition doesn't come from a place of disrespect, but a place of the yearning to grow, the yearning to learn more. Where do I come from? If I do not know where I come from, then I am not able to know or to embrace where I'm going. So I have to know, where do I come from? What are these things that make me? What are some of the values that my grandparents, my ancestors used to embrace? What are some of these things? And asking doesn't mean that you are asking because you are being disrespectful, or you're not understanding what the modern world is doing, or you're not embracing what the modern world requires you to do. We can both wear our hats in the boardrooms, as well as still maintain our native names and wear those names with pride. So being able to ask does not mean that we are disrespecting. In the Bible, the faithful book, Jesus condemned the Pharisees because they were upholding negative customs or oppressive customs. That doesn't mean that he was being disrespectful to the culture. It means that he was trying to bring out the good faith, the goodness of the humanity of the people, instead of just being quiet about it and letting people just live whichever way they want. So asking about these questions is just trying to bring out the truth, trying to bring out love and also justice among the people.
I love that. Well, let's take a break, Angela. I think there's still a lot to unpack, because once you understand the value of your traditions and they form a core part of who you are and who you are becoming, but also trying to navigate the modern world, be a part of it, and make it a part of your identity as well. I want us to come back and speak about creating this hybrid identity and how to find balance in that particular world. It's 20 minutes past 10 Central Africa time. How are you balancing your cultural traditions and your modernity? Let us know on +27 63 406 9126.
It's Channel Africa's birthday month.
Happy birthday!
Celebrate Africa's voice with us. Catch us on SABC Plus, DSTV Audio Bouquet 802, and Satellite Channel PAS10. Call us on +27 63 406 9126.
I can see my whole world changing.
And contribute to the conversation. Get set and be ready to go. On the Move with Palesa and Benjamin Moshatama.
Hey, we have Angela on our live stream. If you want to see her and get into the conversation, you can just check out our live stream as well. She's right there with us, and we're broadcasting her in our live stream. That's Angela Zilani, who's joining us for our Becoming feature today. Angela is a transformation life coach and a CEO of Angelique Achievers. Today we're speaking about balancing tradition with modern ambitions, and it's very important that we speak about these. I mean, you were speaking about women earlier on and about just some of the fact that they're the ones who are the handlers of tradition most of the time, which is so true, but they also manage the information from one generation to another. But at times tradition also doesn't acknowledge women in a positive light, in terms of women are always the doers. Women, you go to a traditional ceremony, women are always the ones outside with the pots, and they're the ones who have all these big expectations from them, and we always impose tradition on them. Do you think to a large degree that there are modern things that we should incorporate within our traditions to lessen the weight on women? Like, for instance, I think that as men, we can be out there helping the ladies with the cooking. We can help them in the traditional ceremony with the things that they function with, maybe carrying, maybe even cooking itself. I don't mind going to an African ceremony and being with the ladies there and helping out there. But it seems like it's not traditional, and we're staying away from that adaptation of modernity in an African context. It seems like we don't want to also absorb modern things in our traditions.
I think we need to embrace the fact that times have changed, and because times have changed, so many things have also changed. And in the old days, the traditional days, men used to go to the farm, women used to stay at home and take care of the children and cook, and maybe take care of what the men have brought home. If it is, after slaughtering the cows or the wild animals, the women would cook, or the men bring seeds home and the women prepare them and they make meals. But nowadays things have changed because we have economic factors and many other factors that influence our days today and our modern lives today. And because we have to get out there and also help the man in, bringing in money at home and making sure that our children are going to school, proper schools, we are wearing both the hats of, maintaining our traditions as well as embracing this modernity. So it is also the duty of the man to open up his eyes and see, you cannot leave everything for the woman. It's no longer funny or fun or, nice to see a man sitting on the couch and reading the newspaper after work, and the woman is in the kitchen cooking, running around with the children, and she's just also from work as well. So I think these are things that we need to look at and also embrace the fact that women in their own wisdom have gone to school and they've achieved a lot, and they can still achieve much more. So there's the place of the man because of masculinity, but there's also the place of a woman because of femininity. But we must be able to, to see how we can coexist in a way that brings harmony and also embraces love among family, and also in the cultural, in the corporate sector.
Yeah.
If you look at organizations that have only men, they hardly thrive. If you look at organizations with only women, they hardly thrive. So it's good to mix both so that you also embrace and benefit from the qualities of both genders.
Angela, they do say that there's a time and place for everything. And if you are an individual who intentionally wants to embrace both their cultural identities and traditions, but also loves to move within global modernity, how do you disseminate when is the right time to use each of those roles? So when you're moving around the world, maybe at work, it's okay to use more of your modern identity because it flows better and it helps with the success of those ambitions. But maybe if there's like a traditional ceremony at home, you try to embrace a little bit more of your cultural identity without sort of forcing on your modern identity in a space where people might not understand that identity. So how do you make sure that you balance that, using the right identity in the right space?
One thing of the good thing about growing up and growing, not just up in years, but also growing up in wisdom, is that you are able to understand where to bring in what. You are able to understand when I'm in a palace, like Esther in the Bible, I bring out my royalty, but also I can embrace my faith or my tradition to also bring in other things. So we are able to, like I said as we began, with the mind that whatever the mind can fathom, it can achieve, or whatever the mind can fathom, one mind can fathom, it can be achieved by even many other people. So it's good to understand that we have the capability to embrace all these things together. But the most important way to live your life is just to be able to give yourself permission to evolve, give yourself permission to stay grounded as well. So with your own wisdom, you can both evolve and continue evolving into the modern world, but also embrace your own, with wisdom, your own grounding. You being grounded with, where you come from, what makes you, because we cannot put the culture aside. So we can be able to define ourselves beyond, roles like, as women especially, with roles like submission, roles like being modest when we are in the corporate world. Because in the corporate world, that's not where we are going to submit. But in the home, that's where we are going to submit, and we are going to be modest, and we are going to embrace these traditions. So depending on where you are and depending on times and who you are, then you can be able to discern, what do I need to do in this situation that will stand out for me? There are times when I'm called Angela, it feels very okay. But when there are other times when I'm called Nzilani, I feel even much better. So depending on where you are, there are times I use Angela, there are times I use Nzilani, and I have to look at where does it fit best,
Absolutely.
So yeah, we can do both.
I love that, the fact that there's space for both tradition and modernity. But that's where we have to leave it. Where can people find you, Angela? Are you available online for some of your work that you do with your life coach expertise?
Yes, I am online. I'm on Facebook, Angela Nzilani Life Coaching. I'm also on TikTok, Angela Nzilani, and I'm on YouTube, Angela Nzilani. So you can follow me on those platforms, and there's a lot to learn. There's a lot to learn from those platforms.
Fantastic. And which country are you based in?
I am from Kenya, Nairobi. I live in Nairobi.
Oh, fantastic. That's a lovely city there. Yeah. Definitely you come from the better half of the continent.
Oh yes. And I've been to Durban, I've been to Joburg, and I love South Africa and South Africans. Thank you for having me on the show.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us. That's Angela Nzilane, Transformation Life Coach and CEO of Angelique Achievers. What's your take on that one? Do you think there's a space for tradition in our modern world? And how do you incorporate tradition? Give us your thoughts on our WhatsApp number, +27 63406 9126. I'm looking at that live feed. Thank you to Lerato Slindile Mukwena for joining us there on our live feed on our Facebook page. Thank you as well to Murangi Tanga Vulelo, who's also watching there online. If you are saying, where is this live stream? Yeah, you can see our faces. You can see us actually in a video format on our live screen on our Facebook page, which is simply titled Channel Africa, and also on our YouTube page at Channel Africa 1. Well, it's time for us to quickly move on. Let's see what's happening in sports. Fikile Lingwati is standing by. It's 10:31 Central African time.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
We start off with football news. Paris Saint-Germain's dynamic right back, Achraf Hakimi, has clinched the Marc Vivien Foe Award, crowning him League One standout African player for the 2024-2025 season. The Moroccan star outshone Nantes' Moses Simon, Nice's Ivan Goussand, and Strasbourg's Habib Diarra to claim the prestigious honor, named after the late Cameroonian midfielder who tragically passed away in 2003. Hakimi played a pivotal role as PSG secured their record-extending 13th League One title. His contributions also propelled the Parisians to the Champions League final, where they will face Inter Milan on the 31st of May. The versatile defender sealed his case with a crucial goal in PSG's 2-1 Champions League semi-final victory over Arsenal, showcasing his attacking flair from the right flank. The South African emerging women cricket side head coach Dinesha Devnarain is happy with the team's resilience in their one-day campaign against Bangladesh emerging women. The emerging women's successful one-day campaign against Bangladesh concluded with 2-1 series victory for the visitors in Chattogram last week. Reflecting on the significance of securing a series victory in subcontinental conditions, South African emerging women's Devnarain sing the praises of the team.
It's really tough conditions. It's something that obviously we're not used to. With this extreme heat conditions, the humidity is high. It never really cools down at a stage. So I'm definitely pleased with the leadership team as well as the team, just the way they got about their business. And yeah, it took some experienced players to see the team through, and there's obviously a nice blend of youngsters as well as good domestic players. So yeah, really chuffed. I mean, I think it's quite a huge honor. I mean, that the ladies pulled off a series win. I mean, we would have loved to make it 3-0, but yeah, it's usually the games that we lose that we learn the most.
On lessons learned from the tour so far, Marine pointed to technical improvements with both bat and ball as priorities going forward.
We're taking definitely lots of learnings. I think the biggest one for us is our extras. We just need to be better with our extras. We need to learn, or we need to try to do our best in terms of bringing our cutters or variations earlier on. We want to be one side of the wicket. And yeah, as a batting unit, we still want to play fearless cricket, but we want that with obviously responsibility as well, to make sure that, you know, whoever's in there is to finish the game off and see that through.
Now, golf news. The world number one and Masters champion Rory McIlroy says he will play in the Australian Open for the next 2 years, ending a long absence from the tournament. The Northern Irishman became just the sixth golfer to complete a career Grand Slam of all four majors with his dramatic playoff win at Augusta last month. On the eve of the second major of the year, the USPGA Championship at Quail Hollow, McIlroy announced he will tee up in the Australian Open from the 4th to the 7th of December this year at the well-renowned Royal Melbourne course. 36-year-old will return to Australia in 2026 when the prestigious event moves to the nearby Kingston Heath course. Australian tournament officials are also hopeful of luring home PGA Tour winner Min Woo Lee as well as major champions Cameron Smith and Adam Scott. Let's end with tennis news. Jasmine Paolini became the first Italian woman to reach the Italian Open semi-finals since 2014 when she beat Russian world number 11th Diana Schneider 6-7, 1, 6-4 and 6-2. In a stunning first set collapse, Paolini was 4-love up but lost the next 5 games before Schneider then forced a tie break, which the 21-year-old Russian dominated. Backed into a corner, while number 5 Paulini mounted a comeback of her own in the second set, winning 6 successive games after herself trading for love. For any sports stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fire Lengwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Africa. It's time to plug into the heartbeat of the continent. Tune in to Channel Africa, your go-to radio station that broadcasts in 5 different languages.
L'Afrique du Sud célèbre la journée nationale du
Kabla hujaitwa kwa jina la Double K or more of our forests have been destroyed.
Partido Africano da Independência da Guiné.
See, Channel Africa represents every corner of this amazing land. From Lagos to Cape Town, Nairobi to Dakar, we've got you covered with the freshest news, music, and cultures. So, turn up the volume, feel the rhythm. And join the conversation. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
All right, now let's move to our business news. Buntle Headbush is standing by.
Business news on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Good morning. In our top business story this morning, South Africa's Electricity Minister Kgosientsho Ramokgopa and his team have briefed the media on the readiness and maintenance of South Africa's electricity grid this morning. The briefing came after Eskom's announcement that it would implement stage 2 rolling blackouts during evening periods. Ramokgopa says that despite this announcement, the winter outlook for South Africa remains more positive than that of 2024. This is because the power utility has improved its generation capacity and will have additional capacity of 2,500 megawatts by July. A University of Johannesburg sociologist in South Africa, Professor Trevor Ngwane, has accused government of failing to create jobs for the poor and of colluding with white monopoly capital. Professor Ngwane was commenting after the unemployment figures released by Statistics South Africa yesterday, which showed a slight increase in the unemployment rate during the first quarter of 2025. Close to 300,000 jobs were lost between January and March this year, as compared to the fourth quarter of 2024. Youth unemployment remains above the national unemployment rate at 40.4%. Professor Ngwane elaborates.
The unemployment rate is because the government of National Liberation of the ANC failed to prioritize job creation to roll back the inequalities of the past. Instead, they chose to collude with white monopoly capital who wanted to continue benefiting from the economy. As a result, job creation took back step and making profit for the rich became the priority.
The African Union and the African Development Bank are meeting in Togo. The meeting is to discuss and develop a common African position on debt. The 3-day high-level summit, which ends today, seeks to come up with a plan to manage debt in Africa and create stable economies. Chief economist at Don Consultancy Group, Chief Mago, has more.
Expenditure of most African countries, on average, almost close to 80%, is being geared towards interest rates and debt repayment. So that is like taking away a share of what can be used in terms of development expenditure on the African continent. So it is quite a significant approach in terms of ensuring that this debt element is actually reduced or in a way managed with element of fiscal consolidation, but also in element of debt restructuring.
The Cobalt Institute says demand for cobalt will rise faster than supply in the coming years. This will allow the market to reduce the surplus and swing to a deficit by the early 2030s. The Institute says that in the short term, the future of the cobalt market depends on what the Democratic Republic of Congo, the world's top producer of the mineral used to make lithium-ion batteries, decides to do after its 4-month export ban imposed in late February. Oil prices have dipped this morning as traders eyed a potential jump in U.S. crude inventories. Prices have held their highs for almost 2 weeks now, amid relief after the United States and China agreed to temporarily lower their reciprocal tariffs. Brent crude futures fell 32 US cents or 0.5% to $66.31 a barrel, while West Texas Intermediate crude lost 0.4% to $63.01 per barrel. Taking a look at our indicators this morning, $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira, 600 in Botswana. It's at 13 pula 46. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling, 305, and in Zambia, it's at 26 kwacha 48. Moving on to the BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 64, Russia 80 rubles 40, in India it's 85 rupees 8, China 7 yuan 20, and South Africa $1 is trading at 18 rand 30. $1 is trading at 75 pence to the British pound and 89 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,232 and platinum at $988 per ounce, while Brent crude oil is at $66.17 a barrel. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Buntle Hedbush.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. The rhythm of Africa. The pulse of the continent. This is Channel Africa. The African perspective. Big news from Channel Africa. Now you can listen and watch your favorite shows on Channel Africa. Channel Africa is streaming live on the internet on all our social media pages at Channel Africa 1 from 6 a.m. till 9 p.m. Central African Time. Download the SABC Plus app or visit our website www.channelafrica.co.za and stream us live on all our social media pages at Channel Africa 1. Channel Africa now streaming for your eyes and ears only. Channel Africa, the African perspective. No fairy tales, just the facts and the music you love on Channel Africa. Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa on the move. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business.
King and Diamond Platinums. This one is titled Kolo Kolo right here on Channel Africa. The beautiful music of the African continent makes us move. The rhythm is there. It's midweek, so hopefully you still have that energy. And we're definitely making sure that you enjoy the conversations and the music too. It's 10:46 Central Africa time. We're going into our TikTok feature. This way I delve into the world of TikTok and the world of social media to see what's going on there, what's trending, and what are some of the highlight conversations that we're seeing over there. But before we go into our TikTok feature, Benjamin, you know that this month is Channel Africa's birthday, right?
Hip hip hooray.
Hip hip hooray. So this month is Channel Africa's birthday. And because last month we saw Mandela leave jail and we have to take the cake to the ceremony.
I don't get it.
Okay, so if Channel Africa's birthday is today, when I get home, I like to eat like pap when I'm still wearing my heels.
Yeah, if that makes sense to you.
Because let me make you understand, right? Today there's gonna be cake, right, at the Channel Africa studios. So when I'm eating dinner and wearing my heels, sometimes I can feel a little cold.
Yeah, of course.
Do you get it?
Not at all.
Why not?
Because they're not correlating.
No, but Ben, okay, when I'm feeling cold in the evening, right now it's almost winter.
Sure.
So when I'm feeling cold and my crops aren't ready, that's why I have to wear my gown.
Yes. Point being?
Point being, it's the birthday today and we're going to eat cake, and that's why I don't make dinner.
Mm-hmm. Because your thoughts do not align.
What do you mean my thoughts don't align? Okay, the TikTok trend that we're going in today is something called the gibberish prank.
Okay.
And that's something that's been that's something that's been trending on my social media platforms.
That's what they do.
So the gibberish prank is literally you're speaking to someone and you make no coherent sense and they're trying to figure out what the heck are you trying to say. So I'm not the only one that got you today, Benji.
That was good because I'm like, yeah, nah.
What's going on here?
I think Pa's about to do the job.
Okay, let's hear some of the other successful gibberish pranks that people have played on their loved ones on the socials.
Hello, Dad.
Hello.
Então, how are you? Okay.
I'm okay, yeah.
Yeah. How are you going to speak tomorrow? Are you going to in Portugal?
Portugal?
No, Portugal is Cabaga.
I don't understand, camarate.
Huh?
I don't understand. Who's talking?
No, if you're going to Big Dad tomorrow.
Huh?
If you're going to this community in Portugal, Lisboa.
Tomorrow? No, I don't know what's talking. I'm Mario.
I wonder what language this is.
It's English, but a little bit of Portuguese as well.
Okay.
I don't know who's talking.
Oh, pai, it's me, Pompey.
Pompi, non sei portuguese Mariano qua. Sei inglese Mariano qua. A mia inglese Mariano qua.
So in closing, Benji, when you do the gibberish prank, you have to make sure that your socks are warm because then you won't be able to see the sunset.
Yeah, because right now you are not making any sense.
It's 10:49.
I think you've mastered this art. Whatever it's called, you've just mastered it.
I've mastered a good amount of gibberish. It's 10:50 Central Africa time. What's trending in your world and on your socials? Let us know by also joining our social media platforms. We're live on Facebook with Channel Africa. We're live on Instagram at Channel Africa 1, as well as on YouTube. More to come after this. Let's go back to the music.
Music and lifestyle. We deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act.
See me there, it's titled Joro Me, and before that, another beautiful lady, Libianca, giving us My Place. It takes us to 57 minutes past 10 o'clock Central African time. We're moving into the final hour of On the Move. Thank you for joining us on DSTV channel 802, OpenView 6 to 8. That's where you can find us on our audio bouquets on DSTV. Remember, you can also find us on the SABC Plus app. Actually, I prefer you to go to the SABC Plus app. It's so easy to use. It's kind of very versatile in what you can actually find there. But of course, you must check out Channel Africa there on the radio station section. All you have to do is go on any app store, and as soon as you get there, just search for SABC Plus, and you get it on your phone, and you can listen to Channel Africa any time of the day. Remember, as I mentioned, go to the radio station section, and you can just scroll for Channel Africa, and you can listen to us 24/7. And yeah, it is a cool experience indeed, and it's very easy to utilize, and you've got like a whole lot of platforms actually to visit. But of course, you have to stay here on Channel Africa. Another way to listen to Channel Africa is via our website, www.channelafrica.co.za. So it's easy ways, man. We make it easy for you, so you can actually find us here on Channel Africa. Hey, let's move into what's coming up on the show, our Live Well feature. This is our health feature where we care about you and give you information of what's happening in terms of health. Pregnancy is a very sensitive time, right? And it's like something that you actually don't kind of know what direction it can take. It can take different directions. There could be so many scenarios and challenges when it comes to pregnancy. One that is a big risk is hypertension. That is a rising health risk, according to experts. We're going to be speaking to Dr. Rogers Mabatswa, an obstetrician gynecologist who's based in the capital city here in South Africa, Pretoria. And we're going to be speaking about a campaign to speak about high blood pressure and also hypertension. And what are the big risks there? I can imagine there could be mammoth risks, and they could affect both the mother or the child. So we'll be finding out about that, because hypertension is a big challenge, not just here on the African continent, but globally. 10% of pregnancies worldwide, which is a huge number, are affected by high blood pressure, and it is a leading cause of maternal and neonatal complications. We'll find out about those complications a little bit later, but that's what's coming up on the show. Remember, you are listening to Channel Africa. This is On The Move with myself, Benjamin Moshatama. We also have Palesa Tau. Hey man, we also have a great news team that's making sure that we are updated when it comes to the day's news. And doing that for us this morning was Nolthando Buthelezi. She's wrapping up the morning news today. Let's find out what she has for us.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thanks, Benjamin. Top story this hour: Botswana relocates asylum seekers and an emotional testimony to a Paris court. Botswana will soon relocate at least 469 asylum seekers currently detained at the Francistown Centre for Illegal Immigrants to Dugwi Refugee Camp, situated some 530 kilometers northeast of Gaborone, Botswana's capital city. The asylum seekers from the war-torn Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, Somalia, Uganda, Rwanda, Ethiopia, Namibia, Zimbabwe, and Better Great Lakes include an estimated 102 children, some of whom are as young as 3 years old. Botswana's Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, Nelson Ramotwana.
Since the current government is an upholder of human rights, we can't keep you in prison without any charge, without any trial, without any conviction. On the basis of the report that was prepared by the Assistant Minister together with the concern of the First Lady, and after consultation and internalization of the report, we came to a conclusion as a collective that you will have to be relocated to Dugwi Camp.
The University of South Africa has announced the launch of the G20 Presidency Community Engagement Town Hall Outreach Program at the university's main campus in Pretoria. The university has partnered with the Department of International Relations and Cooperation. The launch is taking place under the theme South Africa in Africa and the World: Economic Prosperity, Global Governance, Peace, Justice, Human Rights and Security. Michael Mbewe reports.
This program is an integral part of South Africa's G20 presidency, which the country assumed on 1st December 2024 and will run until 30 November 2025, held under the main theme Solidarity, Equality and Sustainability.
Intense fighting has continued in Libya. Witnesses say that after Monday's killing of a major militia leader set off fighting between rival factions. The United Nations Libya mission says it was deeply alarmed by the escalating violence in densely populated neighborhoods of Tripoli and urgently called for a ceasefire. The latest unrest in Libya's capital could consolidate the power of Abdullah Mahid al-Debaa, Prime Minister of the divided country's Government of National Unity, an ally of Turkey. And then South Africa's Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Ronald Lamola, has confirmed that all G20 member states, including their heads of state, have been invited to attend the upcoming Leaders Summit in Johannesburg. In a media briefing, Lamola noted that while former U.S. President Joe Biden has been invited, it will be up to the U.S. government to confirm his attendance. On Russia, he indicated that in line with the recent precedent, President Vladimir Putin is not expected to attend due to International Criminal Court's ruling, though will be represented at a ministerial level.
With regards to the Leaders Summit, who has been invited to participate, the G20 is for all members of the G20. And the leaders of the G20, they are all expected, or they are invited to attend. And obviously the US President, as a member state of the G20, will be invited.
U.S. reality star Kim Kardashian has given an emotional testimony to a Paris court. She has told judges that she thought she was going to die at the hands of masked gunmen who stole millions of dollars worth of jewelry from her in a luxury hotel suite in 2016. Kardashian, who was bound and held at gunpoint during the ordeal, faced her alleged attackers for the first time yesterday while giving evidence in the case. 9 men and 1 woman are on trial for the armed burglary. Let's now recap the top story. Botswana will soon relocate at least 469 asylum seekers currently detained at the Francistown Center for Illegal Immigrants to Dugwi Refugee Camp, situated some 530 kilometers northeast of Gaborone, Botswana's capital city. For any news stories that you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I am Nolutando Butelezi.
SABC News. The African Perspective. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story. A living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece.
Hey, health is something very important to us, and I'm sure it's something important to you. And navigating health is usually very important when it comes to, it starts with information. If you don't have that information, then you really never know, and you'll never figure it out, because health is something that you need to access that information to know how to navigate around it, right? And that's what we do here. We enter into a portal where we're giving you all the information that you need. That's why we have this Live Well feature, where we really want you to live well. In fact, not just you, but also ourselves. We actually access a lot of information ourselves, and we grow together with you. Well, we're going to be speaking to Dr. Rogers Mabatswa, an obstetrician and gynecologist based in South Africa's capital city, which is Pretoria. The doctor is launching a dedicated awareness campaign that is educating pregnant women and their families about the dangers of high blood pressure. I think it's such an important conversation. Things like high blood pressure, they aren't known unless you actually are someone who regularly goes to an expert and checks your blood. There has to be constant assessments on that. So it's something that you really need to know your body, and you need to always have constant check-ins on your health. And I think at times we just let ourselves go, right? We don't do that regular checkup. So this is an important one, especially that has to do with the pregnant woman. 10% of pregnancies are actually affected by high blood pressure in the world. So it's something that affects women in a large way. So we're looking forward to looking at that one and looking at what are the causes of the maternal and neonatal complications due to high blood pressure. But most importantly, how do you deal with it, and how do you navigate making sure that you and your baby are safe?
Yeah, this is an important conversation to have. Maternal health is very important because it's a very, very sensitive time and a very tricky time health-wise, pregnancy and childbirth. So it's always important to make sure that we raise awareness on various illnesses that one could come across during that time of your life. Well, we keep things moving. If you've missed any of the conversations we've had so far, head on over to our website. That's www.channelafrica.co.za. Don't worry if you've missed them. They're over there. Just make sure you don't do it again next time. Click on the programs tab on our homepage and navigate your your way through the various shows you can find here on Channel Africa. But you're looking for this one that's on the move, and under our show's details, that's where you can find our podcast and you can continue engaging there. Make the Channel Africa circle bigger, join our live streams, and of course, text us, voice note us on +27 63406 9126. It's the final hour of On the Move. Let's go.
Ritmos e cultura com o embaixador da música africana e lusófona, Jacobi Wakantivani.
Mombali nanga kasongo mbona wewe songa libala mbona wewe mombali nanga
tem sentido tanto a sua falta e do ritmos de cultura onde você esteve, meu querido embaixador.
É 2025 e o embaixador da música africana e lusófona, Jacobi Wakantivani, traz todas as entrevistas com os músicos africanos e lusófonos para a melhor dança, entrevistas e entretenimento. Todos os domingos, das 20 às 21 horas de Johannesburg, aqui no Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Celebrate unity, progress, and pride with Channel Africa this Africa Month.
Nowhere be like Africa, nowhere be like home. Africa,
Listen in on SABC Plus, DSTV Audio Bouquet 802, and Satellite Channel PAS 10. Hashtag On The Move and connect with us.
Hey, it's time for our Live Well feature. In a bid to combat the rising health risk posed by hypertension during pregnancy, Dr. Rogers Mabatswa, an obstetrician gynecologist based in South Africa's capital city, Pretoria, is launching a dedicated awareness campaign which is focusing on an important matter. And this is educating pregnant women and their families about the dangers of high blood pressure and the importance of early detection and care. Hypertension or high blood pressure affects 10% of pregnancies worldwide and is the leading cause of maternal and neonatal complications. And these include preterm birth and low birth weight. Dr. Rogers Mabatswa, thank you for joining us here on Channel Africa.
Good morning to you, Benjamin and Palesa, and good morning to the listeners.
Before we get into defining what high blood pressure is and how it affects pregnant women, why did you think this was such an important issue to spotlight?
Yes, you see, there is a lack of awareness of hypertension in pregnancy. So, and this is one of the top 3 causes of maternal death in South Africa. So it is very much important that people be aware of this condition so that it can be detected early and be treated on time.
Mm-hmm. So let's go back just a little bit and define things and take a journey easily and not rush through the details. Let's look at high blood pressure. As a medical expert, how do you define it?
So it is hypertension in pregnancy. Basically, if I were to define it in layman's terms, it's a very high pressure against the artery, which is the blood vessels that transport the blood. So there is too much pressure in the vessels, which affect blood distribution to other organs of the body. That's how I define blood pressure in layman's terms.
That's very helpful. And what causes it?
You see, there are different types actually in pregnancy. We have those that are pre-existing, which is, we call it a chronic hypertension. This one is the one which is not caused by a pregnancy. And we have the one which is caused by a pregnancy. We call it gestational hypertension. It normally develops after 20 weeks of pregnancy in a woman. So in terms of the causes for the chronic hypertension, it can be essential. So when we say essential, we are saying that we do not know the cause. It's one of those diseases that it can be inherited from the family members and the staff. And we also have secondary causes where the person has got a kidney problem and they end up having a high blood pressure, or they have other comorbid conditions that actually leads to high blood pressure. But in pregnancy, we know the placenta, which carries the baby, it is the culprit. It secretes some proteins that actually damages the blood vessels and leads to a high blood pressure.
Okay. And how do you detect it, whether it's chronic or it's caused by pregnancy?
So the one which is chronic is you can detect it if you diagnose it before 20 weeks. So anything before 20 weeks is chronic. Or if you had hypertension before pregnancy, it's chronic hypertension. And the one that we detect after 20 weeks, it is the one, because physiologically, the one that is caused by the pregnancy, you can only detect it after 20 weeks. So we do measurements of blood pressure on a patient. It's routine. All pregnant women, when they visit a healthcare professional, we must always measure the blood pressure. So we check the readings. If the readings are more than 140 over 90, and we will normally repeat it after a few minutes, and if it's persistently more than 140, 90, then we know that this is hypertension. The patient needs to be on treatment.
Can you speak about those numbers? You spoke about numbers there. How does that work?
So the numbers are the 140 is the pressure in the blood vessels when the heart is contracting. So when it's more than 140, it is not normal. It should be less than 140. But ideally, we want it to be less than 120. But if you are between 120 to 140, we will say that you are actually, the blood pressure is high normal, but you do not really need a treatment. We'll just need, that's why we do a modification, loss of weight, diet, we treat it conservatively. But when it's more than 140, then we'll say hypertension. And then the diastolic blood pressure, the one that we say when it's more than 90, is the pressure in the vessels when the heart is relaxed. So it should be less than 90.
Okay.
So anything above 90, it is not normal.
Okay. And when it comes to hypertension itself or high blood pressure, is it just one thing or is it defined in different ways? Does it also show itself in multiple manifestations, or is it just one way of actually manifesting itself?
Yeah, so we have got different stages of this hypertension actually in pregnancy. So when it's just only high blood without any organ affectation, we call it gestational hypertension. But when it starts to affect other organs, for example, like a kidney or the liver, we will say it's a pre-eclampsia. But once it starts to affect the brain, where the patient has got convulsions, we will say that this patient has got eclampsia, which is a severe form of hypertension. So most of the time it is asymptomatic, but patients can also present with headache. They can present with a blurry vision. They can present with vomiting or nausea. Sometimes they feel dizziness, and they can also present with an epigastric pain, especially if the liver is getting affected. Then they will present with all those symptoms. That's how it can manifest on a patient. And when the patient presents like that, you need to do a full body examination of the patient, head to toe, starting from the brain, the eyes, and we also need to do investigations. We need to take blood to check the liver function, the kidney function, to check if they are really affected or not.
All right. Thank you so much for giving us that step-to-step foundational understanding of high blood pressure or hypertension. I'd like us, when we come back, to look at the elements of pregnancy and how high blood pressure can actually affect pregnancy, as this is the topic that we're focusing on. So stay there on the line. We're speaking to our guest today who's helping us on this very important subject matter, hypertension or high blood pressure, and how it affects pregnancy. We're just laying the foundation so we understand high blood pressure, but we'll continue after the break.
The Midnight Snack, 12 to 3 a.m.
Interracial relationships. And now you are based in the States and you are married to a beautiful white woman, white lady.
I learned that, for us in our culture, we literally can speak our mind. I remember when we started dating and whatnot, and, she picked up like a little bit of weight. And me, I was like, oh, wow, you must be happy in this relationship because look at you. You look great. You're even picking up some weight. And she got really, really offended. And it took I think it was about a couple of hours before I could realize that, because I could tell that she was off after that. And it took me a while to figure out what it was. Until later when I was talking to her, I'm like, you're really, really off today. And then she expressed that, yeah, because you're telling me that I'm picking on some weight. And I'm like, in my culture, when you are gaining some weight, it means you're happy. Yes. So that's what I was trying to imply.
The Midnight Snack, every Monday, 12 to 3 a.m. with Chanduko Ligege, Benjamin Moshatama, and Palesa on the move.
It's a very important conversation to have. Raising awareness on hypertension during pregnancy. We're still speaking to Dr. Rogers Mabadzwa, who's launching a dedicated awareness campaign on educating pregnant women and their families about the dangers of high blood pressure and the importance of early detection and care. Thank you for staying with us, Dr. Mabadzwa. Let's speak about that. It's important to educate women. Many women on the continent and in South Africa are pregnant but don't really know the intricacies of their health during pregnancy, and that can make it harder because there are also so many traditional myths and stigmas that we have about pregnancy. You can eat this, you can eat anything that you want, do this, do that, but we don't realize that some of the things that we do or we've learned might affect our pregnancy journey. So let's speak about those do's and don'ts to prevent hypertension during pregnancy.
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Did you hear my question?
Yeah, the do's and the don'ts, right?
Correct.
Yes. So for a woman who is pregnant, we encourage them to attend antenatal care by house. It can either be with a doctor, the clinic, or a specialist. Mm-hmm. So what we encourage is that each and every visit, the blood pressure must be monitored. So because for patients who, what they should not do is that there are some people that wait for at least to be 3 months or 4 months pregnant before they could visit the doctor. So that you find that it is already late and the damage is already done. So we encourage all women to actually start attending antenatal care as soon as they found out that they are pregnant. So another thing is that especially those who are high risk, we know people who had previous hypertension in the previous pregnancy. Yeah. They are actually at a high risk of having hypertension in pregnancy in the subsequent pregnancies. So they should know that they are at high risk. Women who are at an extreme ages, people who fall pregnant less than 15 years or 16 years of age, others above 40, they are at a high risk. Those are the people that are encouraged to check their blood pressure. Okay. People with family history of hypertension, people with comorbid conditions like diabetes, they are encouraged to attend very, very early. So the don'ts that I will say is that people should also still eat healthy, avoid salt, eat foods which will help their immune system to be strong, so that they do not develop the high blood pressure.
All right. And in your awareness campaigns, it's not just the pregnant women that you're targeting, but their families, their communities, and those that are close to them. Why is it important to assure that there's a community of people around pregnant women that are able to assist and able to sort of hold the fort with them during the journey of pregnancy and try to prevent hypertension?
Yes, it is very much important that those people have a support system, the community members, the family members, so that when we do awareness like this, you might find that others are not listening, but the family members are listening. They will be able to know that, my wife had hypertension in the previous pregnancy. I need to encourage her that next time when she falls pregnant, she must visit the healthcare professional as soon as she found out that she is pregnant. So it is very important because, like I said, it's one of the top 3 killers of pregnant women in South Africa. Number 1 being the HIV, followed by obstetric hemorrhage or bleeding during pregnancy. And hypertension is number 3 on the list. So it's something that we really need to fight so that we can actually take it out of the top 5. Because it's a condition that is manageable, that we can prevent complication. So we should make people be aware that it is possible that we can prevent this complication.
I love that. Well, it's World Hypertension Day on the 17th of May, which is part of the reason why you're running this awareness campaign through the month of May. Tell us a little bit about the campaign, how we can get more information on it, and who has access to the knowledge that you'll be disseminating about hypertension during pregnancy.
The more information, I'm currently on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and we also have a website where people can find us. And we are located in Louis Pasteur Private Hospital, we're in suite number 7. So people can come and visit us, for the awareness.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. Very important conversation indeed. And it's good to see that you're raising awareness and offering services to pregnant women that can try and prevent hypertension, but also make sure they have a healthy pregnancy. We appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you. Thank you, Palesa and Benjamin.
That's obstetrician and gynecologist Dr. Rogers Mabadzo speaking about hypertension during pregnancy. If you have any questions and you want to be part of the conversation, join our live stream on Facebook, on Instagram and YouTube. And of course, you can text us or voice note us on +27 63 406 9126.
The music you love. The music you love.
You're in my head, still can't explain.
On Channel Africa, the African perspective. For over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcast.
You can't define us in one way. We've got so many textures, so many ways of being, even with our music. It's just we've got so much diversity, and definitely that diversity, you hear it there in the cool crooness of Bulawayo. That one is titled Blue Sky. Takes us to 11:30 Central African Time. Fixozo Fikile Lingwati standing by. He's going to give us the latest sports.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Let's start off with football news this hour. The Rwanda Football Federation, RFF, has imposed a permanent ban on referees Amida Hebedi, Ali Uwimana, and Jihadi Mbarute for their alleged role in match fixing in domestic football. The trio is said to have played a role in fixing matches in the Rwanda Premier League on various occasions. On Amida Hebedi, who is said to be the kingpin in the nefarious activities which are against football rules. Uwimana, on the other hand, was slapped a ban for allegedly encouraging his fellow referees to bet on Rwandan matches they were assigned to officiate, while Mbarute was also banned for serving as the middleman receiving money from individuals seeking to fix and manipulate games. As a result, Emedi has been stripped of her badge as a Ferwafa referee. The latest ban marks a giant step that the FA is making to curb out match fixing reported among referees in Rwandan football. The South African emerging women cricket side head coach Dinesha Devnarain is happy with the team's resilience in their one-day campaign against Bangladesh emerging women. The South African successful one-day campaign against Bangladesh emerging women concluded with a 2-1 series victory for the visitors in Chattogram last week. Reflecting on the significance of securing a series victory in subcontinental conditions, South African emerging women's coach Dinesha Devnarain sang the praises of the team.
It's really tough conditions. It's something that obviously we're not used to. With this extreme heat conditions, the humidity is high. It never really cools down at a stage. So I'm definitely pleased with the leadership team as well as the team, just the way they got about their business. And yeah, it took some experienced players to see the team through, and there's obviously a nice blend of youngsters as well as good domestic players. So yeah, really chuffed. I mean, I think it's quite a huge honor. I mean, that the ladies pulled off a series win. I mean, we would have loved to make it 3-0, but yeah, it's usually the games that we lose that we learn the most.
On lessons learned from the tour so far, Devnarain pointed to tactical improvements with both bat and ball as priorities going forward.
We're taking definitely lots of learnings. I think the biggest one for us is our extras. We just need to be better with our extras. We need to learn, or we need to try to do our best in terms of bringing our cutters or variations earlier on. We want to be one side of the wicket. And yeah, as a batting unit, we still want to play fearless cricket, but we want that with obviously responsibility as well, to make sure that, whoever's in there is to finish the game off and see that through.
Now, tennis news. Jasmine Paolini became the first Italian woman to reach the Italian Open semi-finals since 2014 when she beat the Russian world number 11th Diana Schneider 6-7, 1, 6-4, 6-2. In a stunning first-set collapse, Paolini was 4-love up but lost the next 5 games before Schneider then forced a tie-break, which the 21-year-old Russian dominated. Backed into a corner, world number 5 Paolini mounted a comeback of her own in the second set, winning 6 successive games after herself trailing 4-love. Down a break in the decider, the French Open runner-up Paolini continued to show resilience with the crowd behind her to become the first Italian woman to reach the last 4 of the WTA 1000 event since doubles partner Sara Errani just over a decade ago. Let's end with golf news. The world number 1 and Masters champion Rory McIlroy says he will play in the Australian Open for the next 2 years, ending a long absence from the tournament. The Northern Irishman became just the 6th golfer to complete a career Grand Slam of all 4 majors with his dramatic playoff win at Augusta last month. On the eve of the second major of the year, the US PGA Championship at Quail Hollow, McIlroy announced he will tee up in the Australian Open from the 4th to the 7th of December this year at the well-renowned Royal Melbourne course. The 36-year-old will return to Australia in 2026 when the prestigious event moves to the nearby Kingston Heath course. Australian tournament officials are also hopeful of luring home PGA Tour winner Min Woo Lee as well as major champions Cameron Smith and Adam Scott. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fire Ngwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Africa, meet Abedi.
Yeah, that's me.
Abedi is a music lover through and through.
I really love African music.
He's got a taste for all kinds of tunes and spends his days listening to Channel Africa. Guess what? He didn't know.
Okay.
Channel Africa wants to help Abedi and all music lovers everywhere to discover even more incredible music. That is why Channel Africa is calling on all African musicians to submit their music. Musicians, remember to give us all your relevant information. Make your submissions at music@channelafrica.co.za. Submissions are your chance to be heard on radio. But sadly, they do not guarantee that you will be playlisted. All submissions will be carefully reviewed to see if they meet our station's requirement. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Get set and be ready to go. On the move with Palesa and Benjamin Moshatama.
Thank you so much to Figile for giving us that sports in the morning. He's been in studio the whole morning, so thank you. Much appreciated, Figzozo. Let's move on to Buntle Headbush, who's going to wrap up the morning business news.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thanks, Benjamin. Good morning. South Africa's Electricity and Energy Minister, Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, says power utility Eskom is doing its best to manage the national grid as demand for energy increases during winter. This after the power utility implemented Stage 2 rolling blackouts yesterday. The blackouts were as a result of a combination of factors, including delays in returning generation units from planned maintenance, unexpected capacity losses, and higher than expected demand. Despite this, Ramokgopa says Eskom's power system is in a significantly stronger position than it was during the same period last year. He briefed the media in Pretoria.
We are entering this confidently in that during this winter, we're going to have the benefit of all of the Quebec units, at least by July of 2025. We have successfully synchronized Kusile unit number 6 to the grid on the 26th of March. So that's an additional capacity that we have on the grid, approximately 800 megawatts, and we didn't have the benefit of this 800 megawatts when we entered the winter of 2024.
A University of Johannesburg sociologist in South Africa, Professor Trevor Ngwane, has accused government of failing to create jobs for the poor and of colluding with white monopoly capital. Professor Ngwane was commenting after the unemployment figures released by Statistics South Africa yesterday, which showed a slight increase in the unemployment rate during the first quarter of 2025. Close to 300,000 jobs were lost between January and March this year, as compared to the fourth quarter of 2024. Youth unemployment remains above the national unemployment rate at 40.4%. Professor Ngwane elaborates.
The unemployment rate is because the government of National Liberation of the ANC failed to prioritize job creation to roll back the inequalities of the past. Instead, they chose to collude with white monopoly capital who wanted to continue benefiting from the economy. As a result, job creation took back step and making profit for the rich became the priority.
The African Union and the African Development Bank are meeting in Togo. The meeting is to discuss and develop a common African position on debt. The 3-day high-level summit, which ends today, seeks to come up with a plan to manage debt in Africa and create stable economies. Chief economist at Don Consultancy Group, Chifi Mago, has more.
Expenditure of most African countries, on average, almost close to 80%, is being geared towards interest rates and debt repayment. So that is like taking away a share of what can be used in terms of development expenditure on the African continent. So it is quite a significant approach in terms of ensuring that this debt element is actually reduced or in a way managed with element of fiscal consolidation, but also in element of debt restructuring.
The Democratic Republic of Congo's mine minister, Kizito Pakabomba, says the country's 4-month ban on cobalt exports is under review. He made the announcement at a cobalt industry conference in Singapore today without giving any further details. The country imposed the ban on the battery metal in February this year to control the oversupply in the international market, which caused cobalt prices to jump by more than 50%. Oil prices have dipped this morning as traders eyed a potential jump in U.S. crude inventories. Prices have held their highs for almost 2 weeks amid relief after the United States and China agreed to temporarily lower their reciprocal tariffs. Brent crude futures fell 32 US cents or 0.5% to $66.31 a barrel, while West Texas Intermediate crude lost 0.4% to $63.01 per barrel. Now, for our final look at the financial indicators this morning, $1 US in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 600. In Botswana, it's at 13 pula 46. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 305, and in Zambia, it's at 26 kwacha 48. The BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 64, Russia 80 rubles 40, India it's at 85 rupees 8, China 7 yuan 20, and South Africa $1 is trading at 18 rand 30. $1 is trading at 75 pence to the British pound and 89 to the euro. Taking a look at the commodities this morning, gold is trading at $3,232 and platinum at $988 per ounce, while Brent crude oil is at $66.17 a barrel. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Bontle Hetbush.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. The Morning Switch Weekend with the Shy Guy.
Just the other day, I went to pick up my daughter from school, and as per usual, her friends don't usually come to my car just to say hellos and goodbyes. So this particular day, they made this comment about my jacket, saying that it's giving baddie vibes.
You say my jacket is giving what?
It's giving baddie vibes. It got me thinking, where did the baddies come from? Because nothing is new under the sun, as it is said.
I was like, oh yes, remember the Kenyan parliamentarian?
Her name is Millie Odhiambo.
When you are urging me to be a good example to the girls, the younger ones who are doing their first term, Mr. Speaker, if they are good girls, they'll never get corner office. Be as bad as Millie Odhiambo, you will be the mother of this house. So do not be cheated like the African culture, where you are told have decorum, be nice. I'm telling you, you will go nowhere. Be a bad girl like me.
And I thought to myself, that is the original baddie.
Saturday and Sunday mornings belong to the Morning Switch. 3 to 6 a.m. Central African Time. Start your day right with Channel Africa Breakfast.
That smells delicious.
Live, 5 days a week. Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa on the move. Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other: Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other: Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for... Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa. Africa. Partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens. And
by Nomfundo Mo, we've had on the show, and this one is a beautiful one titled Izibusi. So blessings upon blessings to you, and blessings upon blessings to us in studio. Thank you for joining us here on DSTV channel 802, OpenView 628, and on the SABC Plus app. Before that, Nomfundo Mo, you heard Mula Melo with Bachelor Oriayo, taking us to 52 minutes past 11 o'clock Central African time. You know, that final story that we were just looking, that conversation we are having about high blood pressure and pregnancy. You know, the doctor highlights something very important there. The fact that, you know, some people usually go very late for their pregnancy checkups. They go after 3 months. Yeah. But as immediately as you feel like, you know what, I need medical attention, just go for it. Even like we don't go for regular checkups as Africans. We tend to wait for an emergency to happen. Then we think, then I need health intervention.
And you know, it comes back to the conversation we had about blending our traditional cultures with modernity, our global modernity, because what happens a lot in pregnancy is that there are a lot of, I guess, cultural beliefs around pregnancy in our African communities, right? And we say that's tradition, that's what a woman does when she's pregnant. So maybe things like you cannot tell anyone about your pregnancy before you are certain weeks old.
Sure.
Until the pregnancy is certain weeks old.
Yeah.
But what would that do is that maybe you don't even go to the doctor before that time, whereas you could have had an early detection of that hypertension. Maybe it's things like the kind of food that you should eat during pregnancy. Maybe there are traditional norms around that in your culture, or who's allowed to see inside the baby, so no scans allowed. Like so many things that are supposed to be traditional that actually stand in the way of your health as a pregnant woman, because it's so important to get those health checks.
Yeah, I think that's such a truth. And it's about navigating both of them, right? But I think with health considerations, we need to start being more modernized, especially making sure that we have that health expertise, even if we have traditional norms that we want to incorporate even within our pregnancies, we actually consult with doctors. Hey, doctor, according to my tradition, they want me to eat this particular leaf or whatever, or object or whatever it is. Query that with your doctor.
Is this okay?
Is this okay for me to eat this or to drink this? Because that actually just makes things a little bit more nuanced in terms of how you're approaching it. You don't have to approach it one way or the other. You can embrace both of them. But yeah, man, we've had a good time, and we've had such great conversations. And thank you for joining us in this 3-hour journey. Lulu Kabu just walked in right now to let us know what's going to be happening in the Africa Update, coming you from midday to 1 o'clock Central African time. That's where we break out the news of the day, and it's a very quick journey, but it's a very effective journey that Lulu takes you through to make sure that you are in of what's happening here on the African continent. Hey Lulu, how are you?
Hello. I'm good, thanks. And how are you guys?
I'm good.
Great. All right, coming up in Africa Update today, we're going to be looking at Chadema. This is the big political party, on one of the biggest on the African continent. And a senior opposition party member in Tanzania has been arrested as he was leaving for Belgium to attend a political conference. We're going to unpack that with Amani Golugwa, the Deputy Secretary General of Chadema. They are currently in the streets in protest to this arrest. And, with protest, there's a lot of noise. So we're hoping that we will get through to her just to unpack exactly what is going on there and why this person, the senior political leader, was arrested. And then, we are going to be also speaking to, focusing on the G20 presidency priorities with the opening of the Global Land Degradation Neutrality Inception Workshop in Sandton. That's in Johannesburg in the Gauteng province of South Africa. The Deputy Minister of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment, Bernice Swartz, calling for an urgent and uncompromising action to protect natural resources. So all that and more coming up in Africa Update today.
From the politics of today to environmental issues, that's what you'll get on the Africa Update. We have to say goodbye from myself, Benjamin, and Palesa. Until next time, God bless. We leave you with Kamido, hang out with the Stone Boy. This one is titled Brown Skin.
Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized,